Chapter 11 of the 7th Sleuths Club. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The 7th Sleuths Club by Carol Norton. Chapter 11, A Rebellious Boy. The next morning, when Colonel Wainwright entered the cheery, sun-flooded breakfast room, he saw a slender girl standing by the window looking out at the glistening white orchard. She turned with a truly radiant face. "Oh, Colonel," she exclaimed, "isn't it the most wonderful sparkling day? I will have to confess that I have never seen anything so beautiful in the city, for there, even in the parks, the snow becomes sooty almost as soon as it has fallen." The elderly gentleman was pleased indeed, and he said heartily, "Well, little lady, I am glad that there is at least one thing that you like in our country village. Aha! Here is Alfred. Good morning, lad. I judge by your ruddy face that you have already been out of doors." "Indeed I have," the boy replied, as they took their places at the table. "I saw a chap shoveling, and so I went out to help him. Who is he, Colonel? Sort of a surly boy, I thought. He only grunted when I asked if he didn't think the snow was great." "He is Danny O'Neil," the old gentleman replied. "His father is a tenant on one of my farms, and he has a great deal of trouble with the boy, he tells me. Danny is 17 and has sort of taken the bit in his mouth. He doesn't want to go to school nor help his father on the farm. Mr. O'Neil came to me yesterday and asked my advice about sending Danny to a reform school. I advised him not to do so unless he feared that the boy might do something really criminal. Then I suggested that he send the lad over here to take the place of my man Patrick, who has gone to Ireland to visit his old parents. I thought, perhaps, if Danny were earning good wages, that might straighten him out. I wish you would talk with him, Alfred. I'm sure it would do him good." "I will, sir," the boy replied. "There must be some reason that doesn't show on the surface for Danny O'Neil's rebelliousness. Perhaps his father doesn't understand him." Mrs. Gray smiled over the silver coffee urn at the boy and nodded encouragement. "That often leads to a lot of trouble and unhappiness, as I have reason to know," she replied. An hour later, true to his promise, Alfred tried to make friends with Danny O'Neil. Having procured another wooden shovel from the tool shed, he was tossing snow from the front walk, which had not been entirely cleaned off since the blizzard. He did not wish his efforts to become acquainted with Danny to seem too pointed, and so he had taken his way to make them appear natural. But the other boy was taciturn, giving no information about himself or his plans, answering all direct questions with monosyllables. Discouraged, Alfred was about to give up when he heard the jolly jingling of sleigh bells, and, to his surprise, he saw a two-seater cutter, drawn by a familiar big dapple mare and driven by Bob, Rose at his side, while Doris and Jack were on the back seat. They sang out merry greetings as they approached and came to a halt near where the two boys were working. Jack leapt out, and after a wave of his hand toward the Morrison boy, he turned to the other with, "Hello, old Dan, how are you? I haven't laid eyes on you in 20 moons. Why don't you ever come around?" Adding by the way of explanation to Alfred, "Danny O'Neil and I were champion snowballers when we were kids. I always chose him to be on my side when I was captain of the brick school gang." Then to the still sullen-looking boy who kept on shoveling, "I haven't seen a thing of you since you stopped going to school. You made a mistake to drop out, Dan." Fearing that he was embarrassing the still silent boy, Jack turned to explain their early visit. "We four are a committee on arrangement. Stopped by to tell you and your sister to be ready along about 2. We'll call for you." Doris, seeing Geraldine in the doorway, skipped up the front steps for a few words, and on her return, seeing that Danny was alone, she stopped and spoke to him in a low voice. "Danny O'Neil," she said, "I've often wished I could see you to tell you how my heart aches for you since your mother died. Every week when I drove out to your little farm to get fresh eggs for my mother, Mrs. O'Neil was so cheerful and brave. Although we know now that she must have been suffering for a long time. She was always telling me that her one desire was to save enough money to send you up to Dorchester Art School. She showed me some things you drew, Danny. I'm sure you have talent. I hope you'll carry out her wishes. Won't you try, Danny, for her sake?" For a moment the boy seemed to find it hard to speak. Then he said in a gruff tone with emotion, "If I can get hold of any money, I will. It's all that's left, now Ma's gone." "But Dan, you're working for the Colonel. You can save that money, can't you?" "Not much I can't. The old man gets it paid to him. That's how much I'll get." His voice expressed bitterness and hatred. Rose was calling, and so, with a pitying expression in her eyes, Doris said, "Goodbye, Danny," and skipped away. After they were gone, Alfred tried once more to be friendly, but found the surly lad even less inclined to talk than before, and so he went indoors to prepare for the afternoon frolic. Chapter 12